Peace. We back with another episode of Politics and Black Families. I'm your host, Raphael, and I'm sitting here with my guest, Kendra Biegalski, District 101. You're running. You threw your hat in the race. Let's talk about it. Why did you join the race?
I was tired of having no representation in the state house for my political views. And I felt like there were a lot of people in my district who were in the same boat. And instead of having an uncontested election for a House representative, I wanted to give people the choice.
Yeah, that's cool. How did your family respond when you said, hey, I think I'm about to get busy?
Well, I thank God for my husband because without him, I would not be what I am today. He has been so supportive of me. Anything I seem to set my mind to, he supports.
Yeah, it's good.
Without him, I wouldn't have a PhD in nuclear engineering.
Yeah.
He was the
Hold
one.
on, did you say a PhD in nuclear engineering?
I did.
Yeah. Walk us through that. Let's reverse. What is nuclear engineering, and how do you get a PhD in nuclear engineering?
Okay, so nuclear engineering, a lot of people think mainly about nuclear power generation. And that is a large thrust of nuclear engineering. But there's also nuclear medicine that's folded within that. And then there's also environmental monitoring of radionuclides. And then there's also the whole nuclear non-proliferation, which has to do with nuclear weapons, different states or countries having nuclear weapons, and how do we manage that? How do we...
How did you just say, I think I want to do this?
Now, that's an interesting story, too. I was in 9th grade in high school in Maryland. I grew up in Maryland, in Appalachia, so in a little town in a valley in Maryland called Middletown. Yeah. And in 9th grade, my English teacher had us all take career aptitude tests. And... yeah, so it's like you fill out the bubbles, right? And they put it in a machine. It spits out some result. It gives you 3 options, 3 careers that it suggests for you, right?
And it just said you should be a nuclear engineer.
One of mine was nuclear engineer, but I didn't know what that was. Yeah. And she gave us an assignment to pick one of those options, research it, write a paragraph on it, and present it to the class. So I picked nuclear engineering because I didn't know anything about it, just like you didn't know anything about it. Yeah. And so I read about nuclear power and how it doesn't emit any greenhouse gases. And of course, me, my little naive 9th grade self, I thought I was going to save the world with nuclear power. Yeah. So I decided then and there in 9th grade, I was going to be a nuclear engineer. Yeah. Now, I did have an early love of atoms. I have to admit to you, when I was 5 years old, I would literally pull the encyclopedia off the shelf and read about atoms. And I had a little tape recorder and I would record myself teaching my imaginary students about atoms and protons and neutrons. Yes, seriously.
But you wasn't a nerd or nothing like that, right? Yeah. So let me ask you this question. Tell me about the God particle.
The God particle.
You didn't think I know about that? Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, okay. So part of nuclear engineering, I don't really deal very much with subatomic nuclear particles. Yeah. I'm dealing with mainly neutrons, protons, electrons, and then also other energetic energetic wave, like photons coming off of reactions, like gamma rays and
like
X-rays.
Matter.
Well, no, like light. Very energetic photons, like gamma rays are very, they can harm your tissues and things like that. But we can also use them in medical for treating cancers and tumors and things like that. So
thank you for sharing that.
We can use these harmful particles for good.
Indeed. Thank you for sharing that. We all got a little course today. So quick question. How do you marry the two, politics the background, and how does these policies that you see affect these communities? Like these policies that you see coming down from the State House, what's that concern of yours? Like red flag?
As far as energy is concerned?
Well, as far as how do you marry your background with politics,
okay.
and then how does these policies that you see through the State House affect these communities?
So I worked in the nuclear field for a while, but then I had children, and God laid it on my heart to be a homeschool mom.
Yeah.
So I really got into education. I taught kindergarten, first grade, second grade, all the way up. I graduated my son from my homeschool, and he's at University of Georgia now. So, and I've also taught college courses.
Yeah.
So I'm very passionate, and my children were both learning disabled.
Okay.
And
do you advocate for homeschool?
you know what? I really want to say I love homeschooling, obviously.
Yeah. Me and my wife talk about it.
But I want to say this wonderful point about homeschooling that most people don't know, which is it is the only methodology of education in which the outcome there are no race disparities.
Yeah.
It's the only one because no one can substitute the passion and love of a parent showering on their child and supporting them in their education. No government-run project or, methodology or institution can just substitute for that.
I got you. So you would say for a family that's considering homeschooling, you would be pro homeschool.
I would highly recommend it. It makes such a wonderful, loving, cohesive family. It really does.
Okay.
I can't say enough about it.
Yeah. Well, that's good to know because, again, we talk about it often in my household, and it's not that the school is doing a bad job.
Yeah.
But we are always busy, not a lot of time. Child grows up in front of you. You want to spend more time. You think you can, certain things, math, science, I can use some reinforcements.
Yeah.
But other things I can kind of fill in. And then a lot of schools don't have like the arts programs like they used to. The emotional IQ is kind of off. So you get concerned, So that's still like a question in my house. Like, do we homeschool? Are we going to stay?
Yeah.
And it's hard because he has like a network of friends now.
I will tell you what, there are so many resources now for homeschoolers and so many communities for homeschoolers.
Yeah.
A lot of people are afraid about the socialization aspect, but my kids were just so involved with sports.
Yeah.
And one of the wonderful things about homeschooling is that you can educate your child in so much less time than it takes a school in an institutional environment, which allows them the extra time to pursue their passions, their if their sports or their arts, and also to interact with people of all ages. That's what I love about it. When you look at kids in an institutional educational environment, they only learn how to socialize with kids their age.
Yeah.
And they almost feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Or awkward in trying to interact with people that aren't their grade or their age.
It's kind of like they feel normal when they're with somebody their age, and then when they get out, it's kind of like, say hi.
Yeah, but homeschool kids are not like that. Like they have no qualms coming up to you saying, hi, my name is so-and-so, shaking your hand and having a conversation with
How did you compartmentalize all of that? Like husband, homeschool, kids, work. How does that balance? What does that balance look like?
So I always kind of kept my toe in the water a little bit, but I did step back away from my career a lot.
I got you.
And I only taught part-time at like a college or whatever. And so I did kind of sacrifice, I guess, my career in some ways to educate my children. But you know what? I don't think there's one person on the face of this earth who will be lying in their grave saying, I wish I worked more instead of spending time with my child.
Exactly. You get to that point and you realize, and it's like, pivot. What do I do next?
Right.
Pivot. What do I do next? So that's I've been at that point. I'm at that point more than ever now because time is just so precious. You can't get it back. But we're going to move the conversation forward. And I want to know, what are your ideas? Because I heard you speak. I went to one of your panels and I got a chance to hear you. And I know you're pro-business, right?
Yes.
So what does pro-business look like under your leadership?
So I just want to empower my constituents to reach and achieve the American dream. So that means being able to find a good job here in Atlanta. And I have to say, I have to brag on Atlanta. Yeah. Atlanta's doing a fabulous job with...
Clap it up for Atlanta one time, y'all. Clap it up for the A. The A is staying busy.
Yeah, and I'm not from Atlanta.
Georgia's doing a great job.
Georgia is.
Yeah.
They really are. There's the business environment here is very fostering of advancements and developments, and there's just a creative powerhouse here, and it's just wonderful. But as far as it fostering the entrepreneurship of my constituents, I would want to, excuse me, make sure that the policies and regulations for like starting up a new business, they're not onerous on them, and it doesn't take a long time or a lot of money to start up a new business, like as far as like paying fees or and jumping through regulation hoops and things like that. So that's what that would look like. Also, educating our youth, of course, in what they need to know to be successful in the business world is a huge facet of that as well. And I am pro school choice.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit.
Okay.
Let's talk about that. Your pro school choice, what do you tell the parents who are confused about moving forward? They don't understand should they take the extra money, put it aside, and start saying, hey, get ready to go private? Should they be concerned about public education? Should they be advocating against it? Let's talk about that a little bit.
I think it is so dependent upon what educational resources are around you in your community. Is your school doing well? Do you feel like they're educating their students well? How is your child doing in that? It might be a good school, but your child might be bullied there. Or not getting along with the teachers, or they're in trouble with the administration, and you just think a fresh start would be good for them, right? Yeah. Or maybe they need some accommodations that just are not available at that school. Yeah. Then, you would make the decision to say, I think we need to try alternatives. Yeah. And I'm really big on charter schools. There's so many wonderful charter schools out there. We have other alternative schools like university model schools that are kind of like a hybrid between full-time institutional schools and homeschool. Yeah. Like your child would go to the school for maybe 3 days a week and then stay at home on the other 2 days and do home study.
So I guess what you're saying, homeschool or school choice is the most progressive idea, innovative idea we have now to fit with like the workforce and parents and changing schedules. Yeah. It's kind of just as flexible as... Yes. I see. Okay.
There are so many options out there now, which is wonderful. 20, 30 years ago, we didn't have all these options. So we're kind of lucky to be living in the time that we are with all the just wonderful creativity of parents who are passionate about education.
Yeah.
And, you can always, and I have to also brag on Georgia again for offering the dual enrollment program. Even though my son was enrolled in a homeschool program that met once a week in community, he took advantage of the dual enrollment program where you can attend Georgia State College for free and get credit for classes that count both for high school and for college.
Yeah.
So these kids can graduate from high school with like 30 credits if they are really hard workers at it, right?
Yeah.
Now, I will say that my son had an advantage having a mom with a PhD in nuclear engineering.
All right. So I guess with STEM, he was covered in that space right there, right?
Yes, I got so much joy when he said, "Mom, will you help me with physics? Can you help me with my calculus?" I'm like, "Yes, I would love to." So, yes.
I got you. So let's move the conversation a little forward. We're going to have some random questions, right?
Random.
Yeah,
okay,
random. But fun, right?
Okay,
So,
random and fun.
Favorite city to visit?
Ooh, favorite city to visit. All right, can I just be honest and say I'm not a city girl?
Okay.
I grew up with cows outside my window. So, okay.
Favorite state to visit? Favorite country to visit?
Okay, so I've lived in several states so far, and I have to say my favorite so far has been Texas, believe it or not.
Texas?
Texas.
Why?
And the reason why is because they have
he's from Texas, matter of fact.
He's
God
in
Texas right now. He's
you?
in Texas, yeah.
Where is he?
Where are you at right now, Brent?
I'm in Dallas.
Okay, so I lived in Austin for 15 years. So maybe Austin's my favorite city to visit. Okay. I'll say Austin's my favorite city to visit.
Austin.
Hook 'em horns.
I got you. So what about this? What advice would you give your 18-year-old self?
Oh, my 18-year-old self. I was so serious and studious. I had no fun.
I get you.
I would tell myself to lighten up a little bit and also to spend more time with my family, especially my grandmother. I regret to this day that she invited me to go with her and my aunts to Williamsburg, Virginia for a weekend. And I said, no, I have to study for an exam. And she's gone now.
I get you. One time for grandma. Moment of silence for grandma one time. Peace. All right.
She was a good grandma, too. She had us over for Sunday lunch every Sunday, and she sang in the choir. How do you prepare lunch for an entire family and go to church and sing in the choir Sunday morning?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, she was amazing.
Yeah. Busybody.
Amazing.
Yeah. So let me ask you this question. Thanksgiving, I invite you to my house.
Ooh.
I say, bring your family. Black families. What are you bringing to Thanksgiving?
Oh, okay. I'm really weird about food. So yeah, food is a challenge for me. Can I be real with you?
Yeah.
So food addiction runs in my family, believe it or not. I know I look like I'm very fit and everything, but I struggle.
What is food addiction?
Yeah.
What is that?
So processed foods light up our brains and create dopamine rushes, and they act very much like drugs in our brain, and they can become addictive. And about 1/3 of the population has a propensity for food addiction.
What are these types of foods we eat? Like fast food, Snicker bars?
So highly processed foods like sugar, flours, things like that. Anything made with sugars and flours, anything really processed and things like that. So I try to eat very whole foods, no processed food. So I'm not going to be bringing you dessert.
So maybe a salad?
If I bring you dessert, it's going to be bought, okay?
Yeah, I got you.
I know what I'll bring you.
Yeah, what is that?
I'll bring you my famous garlic green beans. They're really good. My daughter loves them. In my family, that grandmother that I loved so much, she would make homemade sauerkraut.
Okay.
But that's really not something that translates to other cultures.
Yeah. You got to bring the mac. I'm talking about the yams, the greens, cornbread.
Yeah.
What you eating, Ariel?
My
What you bringing,
daughter
Ariel? What you
loves
bringing?
cornbread. My
Candy yams.
daughter loves
candy yams. But you know what?
cornbread.
I'm going to throw it to Brent. Brent, a few questions, and we have to wrap it up. Then we're going to give it back to you, and you're going to look in that camera and let them know why they should vote for you come November 5th, right? And
Yes.
District 101.
District 101. It's
And-
the I-85 corridor in DeKalb County.
Yeah.
And it goes all the way up to Pleasantdale, which is outside the perimeter. And it goes all the way almost down to the Lenox road exit, but not quite. And then La Vista Road is kind of the belly of the eastern, kind of demarcation line.
This redistricting is crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know where nothing is
They
anymore.
literally redistricted it out. The current representative in House District 101, like he lives
out
in
of his
Snellville.
district? Wow.
Yeah, he's not in it anymore. Poor guy.
That's funny. Hey, Brent, what's your questions?
Yeah, sure. Very nice to meet you. Very glad you was able to join us today.
Thank you.
So, we were talking about school, and actually sounds like my school, I graduated from Clarkson High School, sounds like community in your district, based on the redistricting and everything that you're saying. And so, there's programs in place, like No Child Left Behind, right? Where they actually take funding away from public schools that are underperforming. And then we have voucher programs that we're talking about, where a child would leave the school and leave with $6,500, which also defunds that school. So for the children who don't get to leave that school, who don't get to go to homeschool, or don't get to go to another school, they have to stay at this school that's been defunded on the federal level and defunded on the local level. What happens to those kids?
What happens to the kids that are affected by defunding the public schools who lose the money based off the money being allocated to the charter schools or school choice?
Well, this policy hasn't been implemented yet. So it's kind of hard to say how much a school would be affected, like how many students it would lose. So it's kind of hard to answer that question for now. And also, I understand that that's $6,000. That's not the only money that gets, that comes from the government to pay for that student. They get federal funding and then state funding that totals, I think I watched Misha Maynor and she said it was like $26,000 for one
it was
student.
over 20 grand. Yeah.
It's crazy how much we spend on education. You can do it a lot cheaper for homeschooling.
Yeah.
Plug in homeschooling.
Yeah.
The money follows the child. So that means the money leaves the school. So the kids that are left behind have even less funding for their school, right? But they're getting cut on the federal level from programs like No Child Left Behind, which is in play. And then we do institute the voucher program. Then that's further funding from that school. So the kids that are stuck at that school are now defunded even more.
But what I thought I thought this was money they were just reallocating. I thought they were just reallocating the funds.
Okay. There's not any new funds. The funds follow the kid. So if all the children in the school had, $6,000 or $20,000 representing them, every time a child leaves, money leaves that school.
Mm.
Well, that's the free market, right? And, I think that there needs to be some accountability for the results of failing schools. I mean, I think that schools can do a lot to improve their stats to make kids want to stay. They can change their curriculum. I know some people think that that it's not the curriculum,
Right.
but there really are pedagogies that work. And, I hate the whole Common Core thing. It's awful. There are methods of teaching that actually work. And if schools were allowed to teach using pedagogies that work, like the phonics, they took away phonics for teaching children to read, and then went to just sight words.
Right.
I mean, that.
Right, 100 sight words they got to learn by.
They take these teachers and they teach them these experimental ways of teaching and learning that aren't effective, and then they implement it in the schools, and then the kids are failing. They're not learning the reading, writing, arithmetic that is so foundational.
Right.
They need to have the freedom, or parents need to advocate in those schools that have poor results. The parents need to be involved, and they need to start, demanding they use curricula that actually work. So that's what I would do to solve the problem. I'm a problem solver as an engineer. I want to say that as a conservative too, I don't see government as the solution to all problems.
Right.
Like, it just cannot solve all of everybody's problems.
And we do have a right to ask, like, should we have government's hands so much over our education system? And then if it's not delivering the results, shouldn't we hold government accountable and we change it up and you let free enterprise have a shot at it in some spaces? What do you think, Bree?
So we have government-funded schools and we have a government school system. And so it's like what you touched on with Common Core. If you're learning math in New York, you should know math just as well in New York as if you learn in Texas or if you're learning in Alabama, right? There shouldn't be a gap between education of students based on what state that they live in.
I'm going to have to disagree with you on that. If New York is teaching their kids math in a way that's not effective, I don't want them teaching it that way here in Georgia.
Right.
I think that the choices should be local. I think local is always better than top down. Bottom up is so much better than top down. Yeah. Always. You got to get the people in the community involved, and these are parents whose kids are there. They're the ones that are going to be passionate about it. They're the ones that are going to care about their children. The people at the top of these educational bureaucracies, they're so above it all. Indeed. They don't care about your kid in your school, in your town. So, and I guess I'm a little bit biased in that way because you can't get much more independent than being a homeschool mom.
Indeed. Hey, B, thank you for that. Thank you for that question.
Yeah.
We gotta wrap it up. So
Okay.
I do want to ask you one more thing.
Yes.
And then we're gonna go right to that camera.
Okay.
And you're gonna let the people know why they should vote for you.
Okay.
And what you're running on. How do you plan on? I love that face, a serious face right there. All right, I'm gonna get serious with you.
Okay.
How do you plan on leaving the world better than you found it?
Oh, I want to be a servant leader, as Frequan Stafford says.
Shout out for Frequan Stafford.
Yes, I love that man. He is so wonderful.
Yeah.
I want to be the change that I want to see. So that means I want to love my neighbors as myself. And I want to lay down my life for others. There's no better thing that you can do, in my opinion. And so that is how I plan to make the world a better place, being an example in that philosophy.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. Now look in that camera and let them know why they should vote for you.
I'm Kendra Biegalski, running for State House District 101, and I would so appreciate your vote. I am going to fight for my constituents to reach the American dream. I want to help put more money back in everybody's pockets because we're all suffering intensely under this inflation. I want to reduce the tax burdens. We don't need the $1 billion state surplus of tax money. That should be back in your wallet so you can buy your food and gas and housing. I want to make the gas tax in Georgia the lowest in the country. Lowering the gas tax will also lower the costs of everything requiring transportation. That includes our food and our grocery stores, all the stuff you buy at Target and any store that requires transportation. It will lower the cost. I want to help lower the cost of energy by focusing on the plentiful energy sources, the clean energy sources that we have here in the United States. We were energy independent once, and we can be that again, and that will help reduce costs. And also, I'm a big proponent for education, for educating my constituents, giving them an excellent background in that, and also for trade schools. Trade schools are really important too. And I got to give a shout out to Georgia for the Hope Scholarship. That works for both college and trade schools. And I am a big proponent for, I support the police. I want safer communities. And I will do what I can to increase to improve the relationships with the police and communities to keep us safe. And then, oh my goodness, what else? There's so many things.
So y'all know what it is.
There's so many things. And if you want to read more about my platform, go to kendraforgeorgia.com.
And there you have it right there. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me, Raphael.
Yeah, always, always. That's another episode of Politics in Black Families. Peace.
Check. IKeepItClassic.com. It's always a little. How I feel to be young and American. South Beach all week drinking till it's embarrassing. Chicago, then London, then Japan. Then back to Atlanta where we do it all again. Hey, fresh passport for the whole